This podcast show is brought to you by Northern Bee Books, publishers of new and second-hand bee books. Founded in 1976, Northern Bee Books claim to stock the largest collection of new and old bee books in the English-speaking world. They also publish the Beekeepers Quarterly and Natural Bee Husbandry magazines. Visit northernbeebooks.co.uk to view their book list. Welcome to the Kiwimana Bay. This is episode 147 of our beekeeping show. This is our Q&A show, and it's setting up a hive.
Yes, and in this show we answer questions about setting up a hive, preparing for winter, and dealing with those nasty bees.
That's a good set of questions, that's for sure.
We are Gary.
And Margaret.
We are Kiwimana, and Kiwimana are beekeepers from the hills of the Waitaki Ranges on the wild west coast of Auckland in the North Island of New Zealand.
Yes, we build and sell beekeeping equipment and bees, provide beekeeper services and education.
Yes, and every new subscriber that joins our free beekeeping newsletter is asked, what's your biggest problem? Or beekeeping problem. We don't want to hear other problems, eh?
No, we don't want other problems. We've got enough with the bees.
And in this show, we endeavour to answer some of your burning questions. Thanks for joining us today, and we appreciate you've taken the time to listen in. This show was made with the help of our supporters, and the show notes for this one are kiwi.bz/147.
Gary?
Yes?
I do have a question for you, however.
What's your question, Margaret?
On the last weeks of our winter, how many lightning strikes do you think we've had over the last 36 hours?
A lot.
3,600.
Oh, I didn't count them all, but that's crazy.
Oh, it's amazing. So, moving on.
Okay, setting up my hive. This is from William Finch. He wants to know how to set up his hive correctly and sitting it. Does he mean sitting on it?
No, it's the correct word you need to. The correct word, which
sighting
is
it.
It's sighting. Yes, sitting has two T's.
Yeah, because sitting on beehives can be very dangerous because sometimes they can fall apart and you get stung on your bum.
Jeez Louise, that was very thorough with your response. So that is one thing when you're setting up your hive, probably best not to set it up, to sit on.
No, have a chair near it so you can sit it. But let's be serious now. I personally think have them facing where the sun comes up because they start earlier. I don't know if that's true or it's a myth, but it seems to work. I also would say have it in a location that gets sun over winter as well. So when it's over winter, they still get a bit of sun to dry out a bit. And what else? Also make sure it's all level. So get a level and level it up. So if they're building, if you ever get into foundationless comb, they can build it without it causing crazy comb. What other tips have you got?
My tips are that sometimes when you're setting up a hive, it also is impacted by your specific climate. So sometimes you can create microclimates where your area is the area where you want to put the hive is very warm or it's very damp. So you really want to avoid a damp place. Yes, sighting it with the sun coming up was in the east. Is it the east where the sun comes up, Gary?
That's right. And that applies anywhere in the world.
Yeah, so when you get...
And why do you think that is?
Because the world revolves.
That's right.
Oh, no, that's right. The world's flat, isn't it?
Only some people think that.
Oh, okay. Anyway, moving along,
Yep.
Tangent ended. My way of setting up is by placing them in the place that is the sunniest in winter.
That's what I just said before. So we both agree.
And the other thing that we do here in our area, because as I was saying that I just totally lost my train of thought. When I set up a hive, here where we are, we get a lot of heavy rain. So our hives are positioned on a hive stand which sits 30 centimetres above the ground. Therefore, the air can travel underneath it so that the baseboard does not remain damp and the air can flow, and the hive base is not sitting on the ground in the wet. The other thing we do is we face the sun to the sunrise, and we've got the area clear and not under canopy, because when it rains here, if it's under a canopy, it continues to rain and then the hive does not get a chance to dry up.
That's very true.
So siting it also is about making it comfortable or accessible for you to manage your hive, well. So you've got to have a space around it, and we generally work from the side or from the rear, so the hive is easy to work that way.
Yeah, it's a good idea to get something like a paving slab on the side of your hive, so if it gets muddy, you still got somewhere to work, eh?
Yeah, so siting your hive is actually the most important thing, and if you have issues with the hive being wet, I'd recommend raising it up off the ground is a very good idea as well.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, William, for your question.
Good one.
Okay, next question is from Sadie, and her problem is a 4-hour drive. She says the availability of nukes and queens is a 4-hour drive. It's just too far. What can she do? I'd say move closer.
Move closer, so closer.
But in all seriousness...
Very serious.
Get some nukes and queens and then start raising your own queens, because then you won't need to buy new bees. Because to me, a successful beekeeper is someone that is not buying bees every year. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. There are some countries that buy in queens all the time, but the only person getting anything out of that is the queen breeder. So I agree that if you're starting out, you may want to consider getting a swarm, because if you get a swarm at the right time, then you can grow a colony from there, and then, as Gary said, you can start doing splits and growing colonies from there. If Sadie is in America, then I understand why they would want to replace queens, but don't they package bees and send them out?
Yeah, in America they do.
So it's possible that Sadie is in New Zealand, and that is a long way to go.
Well, she could be anywhere. We don't know.
Yeah, so I think it depends on your location, but yeah, our thoughts are that if you pick the right time of year, springtime, you could put yourself on some sort of swarm list and get queens and colonies that way.
Yeah, and if you're in New Zealand, there's a great swarm list run by Kiwi Mana.
Yeah, it's an awesome one, that's for sure. And we had over 230 people on there last year.
I know.
It's just
awesome.
Amazing.
Okay, well, thanks for your question, Sadie. Let's move on.
Can I just say something once more?
Of course you can.
Just moving back up the truck. Beep, beep, beep.
Beep, beep.
4 hours is a long time also to keep bees in a nucleus box.
Yeah.
So if you are travelling for that long, you could. If you're doing it, maybe travel at night. Also, keep the air conditioning on cold.
Yep.
And make sure that there's some ventilation in the nuke box. Some people cut a hole in the top and put a mesh across there, just tape it across, and that just gives the bees a bit of air that they can use. So, air conditioning on, and maybe have your suit at the ready just in case.
Yes, absolutely. And only play kind of calm music.
Yeah, like the flight of the bumblebee.
No, have you listened to that? That is not calm.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move along to the next question.
Thanks, Sadie.
Next question is preparing for winter. This is from Tiffany. Her question is she wants to know how to get her hives through winter. Wintering down a hive, wondering if I've done enough to get the girls through winter. Well, tips. I would say make sure your hive is stable and not going to get blown over in the wind or a tornado or anything. Make sure the mite count's very, very low. And make sure you've got plenty of food. What do you think, Margaret?
Well, wintering down a hive is a whole process. Generally, what it involves is getting all your brood reduced down. So that's very important. When you reduce the brood down, it means that the cluster can stay secure. If you have the Langstroth type boxes, then when you have more than one of those, like if you have 2 boxes, you can find that the bees move up. So it's really important to make sure that the bees don't move up, because as soon as the bees move up, they'll move away from the entrance, so it's not guarded properly. So the way that we've dealt with this is that we put in a hive mat with a small slot. Once we've reduced all the brood into one box, because generally you will only need one box to house all the brood when you come into winter. And preparations usually should start in autumn, and you should have your treatments finished before autumn if you use the synthetic ones. So you're looking at about 8 weeks, and then 6 to 8 weeks, depending on which one you're using, and get all your treatments done. So get your treatments done.
So your winter bees are the ones that got no mites on them, eh?
They should be clear of mites, but if you've got foraging bees, you've got mites, and we talk about that a lot. Reduce your entrance down as well, or have a robbing screen so they are protected. But don't just suddenly put it on one day. It takes time for them to propolise it, and the best time is during summer. They can propolise it properly.
And also you reduce them down to 1 or 2 boxes, or did you mention that? I think you did.
Were you not listening, Gary?
Sorry.
Anyway, so what we do is we have a robbing screen on there, which has been on for quite some months, and it's propolized, so it's really secure. We put it on the side where there's the smallest access. Then we reduce the brood down into the lower box, and then we put a hive mat in between that, and then above that we have all the honey. So the hive mat with the slot on it allows the bees access up into it so they can feed off the honey through winter, and they will also, if you leave any other frames up there, they will go up and keep everything clean, which means you don't have to store it. So it's quite a good way to do it, and we don't like to leave our hives on the ground. Even on pallets, they're just a bit low.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so...
and we've got a good article called How to Prepare a Beehive for Winter in New Zealand, and that does have some kind of general terms for other countries, eh?
Yeah, and that's the art of... What, Gary?
It's the art of wintering, isn't it? The art to wintering down a beehive. And what does art stand for? You'll have to read the article.
Ah.
Okay, thanks Tiffany for your question.
That was a really good one. I like that one, and I hope that you have stopped wondering and that right now your bees are still ticking on, Tiffany.
Absolutely. Let's move on. Okay, the next question is hands-on experience. He wants to know how you can get hands-on experience with working with bees, and that's from Andy Cockriff. Well, I would suggest, first up, try and find a local beekeeping club or an association. And Kiwimana have an awesome page of all the bee clubs, eh? That's in New Zealand. If you've got Google or a computer, you can search for a bee association or bee club in your local area. Go along there and have a look, and you may get involved in the bees there. If that doesn't work, you can always try and find local beekeepers, eh? You can see them driving around and just chase them. That's not that good. That's not a good idea.
Well, it may work, but then you might get run over. So be careful if you do that one, guys.
Yeah, so I think local clubs are good places to find people and to get your hands in the thing. And honestly, if you're thinking about getting bees, I think you should go to a bee club first, because you might freak out when you open the hive, eh? Yeah,
a lot of the bee clubs have field days and when they just open the hive and start going through it, and you can go and do that. If it's a really busy bee club, you may not get a look in. It's quite difficult. You could always talk to the bee club and go there when the club isn't open for everyone, and you can just go in with one of the, hive masters and maybe have a look through the hive with them.
Yeah, and a lot of the bee clubs have suits you can borrow and stuff as well, so make sure you wear at least a veil anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to take a bee suit that's been in another apiary.
Not your own bee suit, but they have ones they loan out, don't they? Because remember that we went to a bee club once and a bee flew up this new person's nose and it stung him in the nose and he never came back.
What's that got to do? That's getting nose-on experience with bees.
Yeah, not hands-on, nose-on.
And we all knows that if a bees go up your nose, it ain't good.
No. Okay, let's move on. Okay, this one isn't a problem. It's a response about handling nasty bees. We got an answer from an unknown beekeeper. This is in response to Alan's question from episode 143. And he's saying, a good way to handle nasty bees, I was shown by an old-time beekeeper back in the 1950s, was to cut a square of heavy cardboard big enough to cover the super top. As soon as you take off the lid, you cover cover board, place the cardboard over the super. Next, slide the board across to expose the outside frame. Remove this one and place against the hive wall. Move the board again to expose the second frame and examine. Replace in the hive. Repeat this for the next 3 frames, then replace the outside frame. Now do the same on the other half of the super. So what he's saying is you're covering over all the frames other than the one you're working on.
Yeah, it sounds good.
I mean, what does he go on to say?
He says keeping the frames covered at all times keeps the bees in the hive as you examine each frame. If it's windy, it might pay to place a light weight on the board to stop it blowing off the super. Make sure as you slide the board you don't lift it as well. This will agitate them. The true and tried way, of course, is to replace the queen with a new young one.
Yes, absolutely. That was someone that sent it, but they didn't leave their name, so unfortunately we can't thank you, but we thank you here.
Yes, and I think that I've also heard that some people, if the bees are agitated, I've come to understand that they could be very thirsty. So I take a spray mist water bottle, just plain old water, in a fine mist sprayer bottle, and you can just spray it above the hive, and what it does is it just puts the water particles on the bees so they're busy dealing with that. Don't squirt it straight into the hive, but just do it above and the mist will fall of water, and you can also do it towards the front of the hive. And the towel that you use, you can do the same principle. So the towel is damp, and then you just fold it over as you work through each frame.
Yeah, good idea.
So some good ideas, but I think changing a queen might be a bit extreme because there might generally be a reason why they're doing that, yeah. So it could well be that they are thirsty. So, yeah, give that a go, guys. And thanks so much for that question, Andy. And we've got some good ideas there.
Cool. Let's move on. Okay, this one comes from Peter Hahnemann, and he says, girls don't want me round. Oh, that's a problem. Currently, my biggest problem is knowing what to do when the girls don't want me round and let me know with their tails. Currently, I walk away, but this can be halfway through a hive inspection, so I have to find the courage to go back and put the hive back together and leave them in peace.
Okay, well, I think the first thing I'd say is if you're going to inspect a hive, decide at the beginning why you are going in, okay? So then your inspection is very focused on what needs to be achieved. So that's the first thing I'd say. So if you're going to do a honey, if you're checking your honey situation, just start from the top and work down and leave the brood alone, okay? The second thing is, if you're doing a brood check, you want to do the diseases, I generally take the top box off and leave the hive mat on. Then I place it on another empty box just to keep it up off the ground. And then I take the hive mat and I quickly put it onto the next box, and I keep repeating that until I get down to the brood box. And then I do the work that I need to do. But firstly, have your purpose already decided so you can be very focused on what you need to achieve. The other thing is to be, have a suit and gloves so you feel very confident about what you want to achieve, and that you've got all the right gear to protect yourself for situations like this. Also, you could find that you've been in there too long, so maybe, optimize your inspection method. If you're pulling out frames from the middle, that always makes bees angry. Generally, we start from the side and work one by one, and we use a frame holder to hold the frames for us, so it creates, because generally the two side frames are full of honey, so you can leave them hanging on the frame holder, and then you can just got your space and you can work through without having to pull everything out willy-nilly. So have a really good system for your inspection. Start from the sides and work your way in. Don't go straight into the middle.
That last tip from the beekeeper from the 50s is a good idea too, about the cardboard thing. That's a good idea.
Well, the cardboard thing, I think it's a good idea, but I think a towel might be better. But it really depends on, I think when they don't want you around, it can be because of how you're doing the inspection. You may be nervous and the bees may sense that. So that's why I say have your purpose, have the right gear, use the right tools, use your methodology, and do the same thing. And generally what I do is I let the girls know that I'm going to be inspecting, and I do it the same way every time. They get a little bit of smoke, and then I tap twice on each of the hive boxes. Then I wait a minute, and then I start going in.
Yes, good ideas. Good ideas.
Okay, Peter, that was great, and that was a good question.
Yep, thanks, Peter.
Well, those are our ideas, guys, and we hope you enjoyed this Q&A show. We will be back in a couple of weeks with a new show with more questions from you, and we hope that we've given you some really good ideas. So if you can add to the conversation as well, please comment below and hit the Tell Us button if you want to be part of the next show.
If you love what we do and find it useful, you can support us too. Visit kiwi.bz/banana. Yes, and the show notes for this page are kiwi.bz/147. So if you've got any better answers than our ones, feel free to leave them there.
Yeah, because, Kiwi Mana is a place where the beekeeping community get together and have a conversation, and we ask questions and give feedback. Awesome.
That's right. Okay, well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See ya.